Hello, my name's Harry. As you can tell from this page, I've decided to run the 10K for the Archer project, the 10K in Sheffield. And yeah, this video is basically just to explain why. I feel like I'm just going to go back to the start here. So I sort of arrived in Sheffield in September 2022 as a criminology student going to Hallam, and I've really enjoyed my time here in Sheffield as a student. Criminology is a pretty interesting subject. I've really enjoyed learning about the complexities of crime in terms of victimization and offending. The student life here has also been great. Obviously, Sheffield's a city with two universities, so there's a lot going on in the city in terms of events. The nightlife, I've enjoyed the nightlife like any student does. And yeah, it's been a great experience. There's a good balance to Sheffield as well because you've got the peaks just around the corner. If you just want something a bit more peaceful, away from the big noise of the city. But something I noticed throughout my time here in Sheffield is just the intensity of rough sleeping in this city is quite staggering. Really, I think if you live here, obviously going past the Moor Market, Fargate, the train station, those are sort of the hot spots, and you'll just see so many rough sleepers, and it's quite sad. And I just thought to myself, like, why in a city as like vibrant as this, with so many students, so many people who come all over the world just to study here, why have we got such a big issue with homelessness? Like, it's a really big injustice, and it didn't really seem like many other students were really interested in that, really, which I thought was a bit strange. But luckily, on my criminology course, a placement opportunity came up to do a placement module in the second semester of my second year. And what I noticed for this placement module is that they were offering placements at loads of homelessness organisations here, which I thought was really exciting because I thought not only will this be a good opportunity for me to sort of develop my professional skills of working with vulnerable people, it can also be a great opportunity for me to sort of just learn about homelessness and why it's so intense in Sheffield, and just to sort of make a little difference in any way I can. And luckily, I got offered the placement to go to the Archer project, and which I was really excited for because I already knew a little bit about the Archer project, that they're a homeless organisation here that does a lot of great work. And yeah, so I was really happy to be placed there. I was placed in the engagement team, so that's sort of like the front line of the service the Archer project provides. So as an engagement worker, I guess I provide sort of the basic needs. So like I help service users get access to clothes. I help with laundry, giving them access to showers. We also provide breakfast and lunch, but mainly engagement sort of about building that initial trust with the service users, so that they're more encouraged to sort of engage in the other parts of our service, like the stabilisation service, which is a bit more tailored to individuals' specific needs, a bit more one-to-one support. And as my time at the Archer project has progressed, I've sort of done assessments as well for clients with a little bit of on-the-job training, I guess you could say. So yeah, I did an initial placement with the Archer project, and now I've continued to volunteer because I've been enlightened to a lot of issues with homelessness that goes way beyond just the rough sleeping that I saw initially. And that's not to say like rough sleeping is irrelevant, because rough sleeping is just terrible. Like, so my placement started like earlier on in the year, so we were in the middle of winter, it was freezing, and yeah, some individuals were coming in just their clothes absolutely soaked, their sleeping bags soaked, and at points it was snowing, and I could just feel like the anxiety from people in the project that they would have to go outside and basically live in the snow. Like, it's petrifying, and just not the physical issues of rough sleeping, but the mental issues of as well, of these individuals just sitting on the streets and no one even acknowledging them. I've heard it's sort of like you're just existing, you're not really living. It's really sad. And there's loads of other issues as well, like temporary accommodation for one. Like, obviously, it's it's good to have a roof over your head, but temporary accommodation, like a lot of people don't realize how bad it actually is because temporary accommodation isn't great. People are placed in accommodations which aren't that comfortable, where there's a lot of crime there as well. And just being in temporary accommodation, just the instability of it, it's just not good mentally. Like I remember I worked closely with a individual who was fleeing domestic violence, and they had loads of complex needs, especially in terms of physical and mental health issues. And I really wanted to register them with a GP here in Sheffield, but because they were in temporary accommodation and they didn't know whether next week they'd be in Sheffield or whether they'd be in Doncaster or Bradford, I couldn't really do that because there was just so much instability there. And I even wanted them to get involved in some of our activity groups at the Arch Project because they said, well, I could be in Doncaster next week. They weren't really encouraged to sort of do that and build those connections. So temporary accommodation, like, it's a big issue, and there's a real over reliance with temporary accommodation here in Sheffield, which is worrying. But even other things as well, I like this is something I'm guilty of. I think with homelessness, I used to think, oh, when a person's accommodated, that's it. That's sort of the end of the story, I guess. Like they're fine, they're accommodated. But that transition from being homeless to then getting accommodation, which is permanent and secure, like that's actually quite a stressful and overwhelming process for someone who's been homeless. Because you think like homeless is such a traumatic thing to go to that to then transition into having your own place, having to pay the bills, sort out electricity, gas, sort out the furniture, it's quite an overwhelming thing, really. And I've seen that with a lot of the people I work with in the Arch Project who may be volunteers, and you just see like what a stress it is going through that transitional period. And I don't really think in society we think about that a lot in terms of homelessness. Also, just how particular groups like experience homelessness in really particularly harmful ways. Because I've noticed that a lot of the individuals I work with at the Arch Project are refugees, and it can be a lot more difficult to support them. And that's not to say that there's no hope for those individuals, but if you think about it, they come to this country, they don't really know anyone, they don't really have a support circle, they're not really familiar with the systems here. Most of them don't even know how to make a benefits claim. And there's the issue of language as well, which just makes things so much more slower and less focused on their actual support needs. I mean, I've done a lot of assessments with refugees, and a lot of it is me just merely trying to explain to them that the Arch Project isn't a housing organisation. We don't offer individuals accommodation, but because obviously their language isn't the best, they don't have the best understanding of the systems here. They sort of come really confused, and that just makes our support a lot slower, and we can't really put as much focus onto their actual support needs. So yeah, there's just so many issues with homelessness beyond just rough sleeping that I feel a lot of people don't really see or hear about. So, with my purpose really at the moment, with what I've seen at the Arch Project, is just to help these individuals overcome their adversity and empower them to be the best version of themselves in any way they can. So, yeah, I'm running this 10K to obviously raise some money for the Archer Project. If you could donate £1, £5, anything you have, anything makes a difference, it would mean a lot because obviously we've got the engagement service, which I've already spoken about, but also our stabilisation service as well, which I've mentioned. So that's a bit more tailored one-to-one support to help individuals. So whether that be through the transitional period I mentioned of giving individuals some guidance and some assistance when they're moving into their new accommodation, giving them some support in that aspect. There's also our volunteer program, people who use the project. A lot of them do go on to become volunteers, give them a bit of purpose, which is really exciting for them. And there's also activity groups as well, just to get them doing something a bit more light-hearted, get them building connections with other people. I've been a little more involved with that recently, so I've just started a baking group, so that's a really lovely thing to do. So it gets them doing something really fun and light-hearted in a world which is, I guess, quite scary and daunting for them. But even if you don't want to donate financially, as a project, we need donations through other things as well, whether that be through cutlery, food donations, or clothes, anything like that would just be incredible. And even just volunteering is just a great way to just contribute. I guess it's really fulfilling. I love doing it, especially if you're a student as well, because not only are you just doing something good, you're doing something to contribute to such a big social issue, but you're also doing something which is good for you as well to build your skills and build your experience when working with vulnerable people. And that's another sort of reason why I'm doing this 10K run is to sort of give back to the project because, yeah, my confidence has grown massively from being part of the engagement team and my skills of communication, emotional intelligence, working with various individuals. It's really developed me like professionally and personally even. So yeah, it's sort of giving back, but yeah, it doesn't have to just be the Archer Project. Obviously, there's the Ben's Centre and St Winifred's, other homelessness organisations here in Sheffield. There's also loads of other organisations for other issues such as domestic abuse, substance misuse, but if you're not watching from Sheffield, I'm sure there's other great causes in other cities, especially in reference to homelessness, because unfortunately, the issues of homelessness aren't specific to Sheffield. I know that in other big cities, it's a big issue as well. I don't quite know the extent in comparison to how much I know the extent is here in Sheffield, but I know it's a big issue all around the country. So yeah, and if you could just contribute and make a difference in any way you can, that would be great. And yeah, so my name's Harry, and that's why I am running the 10K for the Archer Project. Thanks for listening if you got it this far.